If you've been enjoying our podcast as much as we have and hope that we continue past 50 episodes, here's your chance. Here's your chance to help make that happen. By becoming a Patreon subscriber, not only will you help the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary podcast to live on, but you'll also get exclusive content just for you.
Here's what's in store for you. Join monthly Q&A sessions where you can ask us about anything. Whether it's about our work, personal interests, or advice on your own projects, we're here to connect and share.
Enjoy unique content created specifically for Patreon subscribers, including bonus segments from our shows.
You'll have a say in what we create, and you'll have a voice in future content.
Benefit from exclusive discounts on merchandise and entries into special giveaways. It's our way of saying thank you for your support.
Receive personalized shout-outs in videos, podcasts, or social media posts.
Because your support on Patreon allows us to dedicate more resources to creating the content that you love.
You could join the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast community on Patreon and become a Prairie patron for just $5 a month. We thank you so much for your continued support, and we cannot wait to share our ongoing journey with you on Patreon.
We are extremely grateful for the support of VisitSimiValley.com and the city of Simi Valley's belief in Little House on the Prairie and their support of the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast.
Discover the charm of Simi Valley, California, the home of the prairie. Visit Simi Valley, where adventure meets history and the spirit of the prairie comes alive. Explore the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, step aboard Air Force One, enjoy stunning hikes and savor delicious local cuisine. Whether you're here for a weekend getaway or a family vacation, Simi Valley offers something for everyone and is only 30 minutes from Los Angeles. Plan your visit today and experience the best of Simi Valley. Go to VisitSimiValley.com for more details. Your adventure awaits in Simi Valley.
Well, hello there, bonnet heads. How are ya? I'm Pamela Bob, your host, creator and star of Living on a Prairie. You know, almost weekly, it's petered down a little bit, but almost weekly I'd get comments in social media, on our page's social media, like, who the hell is Pamela Bob? Like, why is she here?
Who are you?
And I announce it every single episode at the top of the episode. I'm Pamela Bob, creator and star of Living on a Prairie. And if you haven't watched it, go for it. You'll enjoy it. Anyway, I am here, right? Am I right? Let's get a holler for that.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in before we were invited, but
well, I'm inviting you now. Here we go. Here with our Prairie Bitch extraordinaire. That's right. It's Alison Arngrim. Hello, Alison. And he just had a birthday, and everyone was calling him my imaginary boyfriend, but he's really my original #my imaginary boyfriend. That's right. He's Dean Butler. Hi, guys. How are you?
very good. Pamela, you are such an essential ingredient to all of this.
Aw.
Who's Pamela Bob? Pamela Bob is funny, bright, insightful, a Little House super fan. You are not afraid of your opinions about things that you like and maybe that you have second thoughts about.
That's a very nice way of going about it. Thank you.
You add so much to this. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you. Well, Alison, I'll start off by the recent most goings-ons, because Alison was just in New York City doing Confessions of a Prairie Bitch at the Cunning Room. And let me tell you, everybody, I've seen her show at least a half a dozen times, right? Like, at least. I think I've seen it 8 times.
Maybe more. Because you live in New York, and I always do Mother's Day in New York. Always go in May.
And it's my tradition to come see you on Mother's Day. Yes. I'm going to say this was her best one yet. It was so freaking great. And the Cutting Room was an amazing... Laurie Beecham was a great venue. The Cutting Room was like off the hook, unchained, awesome. The crowd loved it.
Space. There was an old Cutting Room, which I played before I played the Beachman. I played Fez, and then I did the Cutting Room, and then eventually I did the Beachman. But they said, you want to go back to the Cutting Room? They got a whole new space. I went, sure! And it was I'm going back there again.
No,
That
that's
place
the
is
place, man.
great.
That's the jam. Yeah.
So was this a saltier take on Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, or was this
I mean,
would think
it's
probably.
pretty salty. I mean,
It
it's
wasn't saltier.
It
It's
wasn't
always salty
saltier.
with Confessions at the nightclub. It's the grown-up show. It's salty.
I
Right,
will
very
tell
good.
you what she added was a
new
new
story.
section about the Netflix series,
Oh.
which was so well done and so good and truly
Yeah.
funny. And she was just in the flow. I'm talking, Alison, I'll let you talk in a second, but she was just so in the flow of it. And the crowd was just, I mean, you know, when you have command of a crowd and they are
Yes.
just there for everything, they were
Yes.
just there for everything. And she was so comfortable and in the zone. And there was no, like, she was genuinely funny, which Alison is genuinely funny, but, you know, she was genuinely funny. People were just dying and her stories were awesome and the show was great. It was a tight, great show and she was in the zone and it was so wonderful to see.
It was big. I did address the Netflix thing because I said it's going to be great and how we're supportive of the cast and we're supportive of the show. And I said, in these just ridiculous people worried about the show. I said, oh, they're worried that they're going to make it weird. And I said, really? Really, what are they going to do? Have someone perhaps get raped and murdered by a man in a clown mask? Are they going to have a blind woman leave her baby in a fire? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps an entire episode about an orangutan. Maybe we'll push someone down a hill in a wheelchair. How are you
It was so
possibly
funny.
going to make Little House on the Prairie weird? We already did. You can't make it weirder than we did.
It was so good. It was so funny. People were dying. It was just such a
We already
smart
made it
take
weird. What
on
are you
it
gonna
all.
do?
It was
Well,
so good.
You know, that there's something mad, and of course, I would imagine in a space like that, people are sitting down with you. They're ready to laugh.
They're waiting for
they
it.
want to have fun. So, Pamela, what you said about that energy when everyone is there for everything.
Yeah.
Those are magical times.
Yeah,
in
and
front
then
of
she
an audience.
delivered. So it only intensified as the whole, I mean, the whole night was just so, it was just so great. It was great.
Yeah.
I was
And
so
I also
tired.
said, I said, we can have many little houses. How many Star Treks are there? I said, we will always be Shatner Nimoy.
Yeah. Right.
We're good.
Right.
But I said, I want Captain Picard in my life. I want there to be more.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
We can
that
have
it was so
more.
smart.
It was great. And people they were just like, yes, this is the message. Yeah. Because there were some diehard fans or diehard fans.
Yeah.
But they were like, yes, hello, duh. You can't make it weirder than the original show.
Yeah, and it
It'll
was
be
just
fine.
so funny and it made sense and lovely thing too, because Alison always has, when you enter her show before she comes out, there are cards on every table. And for you to write any questions that you have.
Oh, yes,
and I'm
of
very.
course,
It
the
was very
questions.
lovely that
Amazing.
people really talked about the podcast and everything on a
Yeah,
lot of
they
the
actually
questions.
did.
Yeah, it
You
was
wanna
really
know,
nice.
yes.
Nice. Did they say nice things about you, Pamela?
Well, they mentioned living on a prairie too, so that was really nice. So, listeners, if you don't know who I am, even people are asking Alison at her shows about me. So
Asking,
there you
and
go.
I kept saying, Pamela, did you write this card? It's your handwriting. It was so good. But yeah, I have my Ask Alison Anything cards, and they do,
Yes.
and they do,
And they
it's
do.
fun. And
Right.
Yeah,
and
they
I had a couple
do.
of stories about my mother. Because it's Mother's Day, I always tell extra stories about my
Nice.
mom. I have all the cartoons, but I had some more wacky stories from my
Yes.
mother's
Did-
actual
yes,
life.
Did anyone
did.
ask about Columbia coming up on June 2nd, June 6, 7, and 8?
Oh yeah, we did. Well, we certainly plugged that because I
Yes.
said yes.
Well, here, I just have to show you. Here is
Yes.
the event poster.
Oh, it's great.
Wait, put it more center.
We have a poster.
There it is. The
Hot off
train.
yes. So hot off. This was created
Aw.
by Orlando de la Paz, who Orlando is a Little House treasure. And so he created this, obviously, other than the Little House itself, which is from Southern California, but the other elements are all things that were captured in Gold Country. And of course, they could have gone on and on and on with that. He could have picked many things, but he picked what he picked, and I think it's going to be a lovely poster, a collectible poster
Yes.
at the event. So it's going to be
That's great.
fun. Yeah,
Which is
so
June 6 to 8.
7, and 8, littlehousegoldcountry.com for information and tickets. There are going to be 13, 14 of us there. Columbia is absolutely gorgeous. The Sierra Railroad is a beautiful, beautiful setup for a ride through Gold Country on Saturday evening. It's, you know, we did an event years ago in Gold Country in the 90s. It was a film festival, so we appeared at the film festival. This is really the first time we've done a Little House specific event in Gold Country, and Gold Country plays such an important role in the beauty of Little House. So we think this is a great way to kick off the second half century of Little House love, going to Gold Country. And
That's the
Pamela, I'm
craziest
sorry,
statement
are
ever.
you gonna like? Well, of course you can't, because you've got a show going that weekend.
I know.
So you're not going to be able to just like play hooky and jump on an
I
airplane and come out and see
know.
us. So all right,
Sad.
we need to jump into this, but are you having fun in your show?
Yes, we finally opened. Allison saw it when she was here. She saw one of
I
our last
did.
previews. It's been a hard journey, mostly because it's a very, very dark and highly emotional piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have a anxiety attack and mental breakdown every show, which is actually
I
quite
don't see
cathartic.
any of that on you right now. You
Oh.
you look you look really good right now.
Thanks. Well,
You're playing a mom whose firstborn child daughter is having a mental breakdown and is apparently having like early onset, schizophrenia. Or
Yeah, and is
actually a psychotic
institutionalized.
break and has to go into the hospital. And they're wondering, is she going to be able to come out? Is she going to be
Such
even
a light
stabilized?
Murphy evening in the
yes,
theater.
exactly.
Dark. And
Yeah.
then the youngest daughter is in great distress because she loves her older sister. And you in real life are a mom with two kids. So the terror
Yeah.
for a mother to see her child go through that, and is her child ever getting out of the hospital, and is
Yeah.
this ever going to work out? You have two kids, so that terror would be palpable and
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
and that comes off on stage. So yeah, it's not exactly a happy, cheery tiptoe through the tulips. evening,
No,
just-
it's really intense. I'm very tired when the show is done, which is why 2 shows on Saturdays is very rough.
I'm sure. Well, you get to pace yourself really well. You get to,
Yeah.
as you learn the rhythm of it, you know, you figure out, that's always that interesting growth phase that you
Yeah.
go through in a run.
Yeah, of how
where
to
you
take
figure
care
out
of
the
yourself.
energy. Yes, exactly.
Even what
that
to
you need.
eat and like how long of a nap you need and all
Snacks.
that all that stuff.
What did they
Snacks.
tell you
Your
about
number
not
one.
eating snacks?
Yes, your number one
mean-
tip, snacks.
Yeah, I mean, you know that for people who haven't done this before, for actors walking into you know, the curtain goes up at 8 at whatever time it goes up, but the show begins. Really, the show is all day.
Yeah.
You as
Especially
you
in
if
a
you are doing
musical.
a performance,
Jesus.
you are pacing yourself through the day to get to that
Totally.
curtain rising with everything you need to get through that, to deliver that performance.
Yeah.
And it's quite an exercise. And I think, you know, working in that environment, it's very demanding on
It
people.
is. I'm
So
just
good
glad
for
it's
you.
not a musical because I don't need that extra layer of like, you know, when you do a musical, you wake up every morning and the first thing you do is
hum.
Is it there? Is it? Are we okay? Is it? And any little tickle or bug or, I mean, it's so stressful. It is so stressful. This one I get to just live easily and then get to the theater and not worry about that aspect.
I
But
would
anyway,
be terrified as to what you would have to sing about in this show as a musical.
true.
That really, it'd be an opera.
That would be an interesting take. Yes. Anyway, the show's called Cracked Up, and
Cracked up.
yeah, and it's
Oh, well,
on.
that
It's
sort of
at
tells
Theater
you-
Row in New
Not
York
cracked
City.
open because the whole
Cracked
family
open, not cracked. Cracked
closed.
open. Jesus, I'm
whole
even forgetting the name.
family
This is. I'm a little tired, you guys. Cracked open, or as we like to call it, busted wide open.
Wide open. Yeah.
That's sort of more
Okay.
it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the relationship between the husband and the wife, how that completely fractures, how he can't handle what's going on, and how she sort of has to step.
And
It's
the two young
intense.
girls playing the daughters just
Yeah.
rip your heart out. They're so good. They're so
Yeah,
young.
the cast is incredible. So anyway, that's it. It's running through June, so I'll be
Let's
depressed
step
through June.
into this.
Speaking of depressed-
let's step into this. Yes.
Let-
Oh, well, no.
And now we're going to talk about a sad episode.
No, this is a sad episode. Okay, this is a beautiful episode. But yes, coming up today, it's a very, very touching episode of Little House, guest starring one of the most beloved actresses of her era. But first, produced in the studios of UBN Go in Burbank, California. This is the Little House 50th Anniversary Podcast.
Ta-da!
Woohoo! Okay, Dean. Hit it. What episode are we talking about?
All right.
Episodes are we talking about?
Yes,
today?
right. It is a two-part. Now, the way it's positioned, the way it streams, now it really streams as one episode, but it was two. Today's episode is season 2, episodes 7 and 8, Remember Me. Remember Me premiered on November 5th, 1975, written and directed by Michael Landon. I think there are elements of this episode that are so quintessentially Michael and his whole take on so many different things. One of his most quoted lines of dialogue, which interestingly is generally quoted to Laura Ingalls Wilder as, it's really funny. The line, "Remember me with smiles and laughter, for that is how I will remember you. If you could only remember me with tears, then don't remember me at all." That's sort of a, I don't know how I feel how he finished that. But remember me with smiles and laughter, because that's how I will remember you, is a lovely idea.
Yeah.
Patricia Neal, the beautiful actress Patricia Neal, had the line in the episode. And interestingly, Melissa Gilbert quoted the line at Michael's funeral service in July of 1991 as part of her remarks, which were some of the most beautiful remarks I'd ever heard. Melissa, who's incredibly articulate, was really, really spectacular in that situation. What she was able to share, because this was obviously a huge moment for her. Alison, we were all there. I mean, it was just, it was really, really strong. But this line, "Remember Me," was a very special part of that episode, and became a very special part as a signature in Michael's life. So
I can't even hear those words without kind of choking up, because it was so Michael. As we know, Michael's laugh. It was all about the jokes and laugh. And literally, it was, "Remember me with smiles and laughter." I can't even say it. "That's how I remember you all. If you can only remember me with tears, don't remember me at all." And it's heart-wrenching in this episode.
Yeah.
But then when it became Michael's epitaph.
Yes.
And of
Right, because
course,
isn't
what
that
was he all about? Smiles and laughter. It was like, it just plunged knife into chest. It's an incredible thing, and that he wrote that, and that was so much absolutely who he was. And then we see it played out in this episode. It's just like, to not, he died in 91. No, this is still early. The idea that this would mirror his life in such a way, this episode, a man with having to tell his children, he still had young children at the time, that he was dying.
Oh, gosh.
And he didn't, by the time he found out he had pancreatic cancer, he did not have very long to live. It was not an early, it was a late. He was on the Tonight Show in May, talking about his diagnosis, revealing it to the world, been diagnosed April.
Yeah.
Spoke on Johnny Carson in May.
Yeah.
And he died July 1st.
July 1st, I think, is the date. He had that little time. Like Patricia Neal says in this episode, a month? Do I have a month? Yes, right. Exactly.
And he had children. So this horrifyingly is this like prequel to his
Alison.
So,
boy.
I can't watch it.
Alison, give us the synopsis of just for those of you who may not be really familiar with it. Give us the synopsis.
It's absolutely heartbreaking episode. It's so really good, it's one of the brutal ones. The widow, Julia Sanderson, with her 3 young children, John, Carl, and Alicia, brings warmth and kindness to the community. And she has a sense of humor, too. She's awesome. But her visit to Doc Baker reveals heartbreaking news. Julia is terminally ill and has only a short time to live. Determined to ensure her children are cared for after her death, Julia turns to Charles Ingalls for help. Moved by her dignity and strength, Charles promises to find good homes for all 3 children. Julia's final days are spent preparing them for life without her. urging them to remember her not with sadness, but with joy and love. It's really harsh when she has to. After Julia passes away, the townspeople rally together to help Charles place the children, but a major obstacle arises. No single family is willing to adopt all three. Charles faces the painful possibility of separating the siblings, particularly devastating for the youngest Alicia. In the end, the solution comes from an unexpected source. Yes, that's right, Isaiah and Grace Edwards.
Well, they weren't Isaiah and Grace Edwards yet, but
Mr.
they become.
Edwards and his kind of sort of girlfriend, who he doesn't admit is his girlfriend. Yes, yeah, because he's like,
never told he loves
people.
before.
Woman, stop kissing me in front of people. And Grace, who is in fact having a thing with Mr. Edwards, as it were, in the 1800s, a chase thing, but a thing. And they recognize the children's deep bond, and moved by their own longing for a family, having faced much heartbreak in their lives, they open their hearts and home to adopt all siblings. They wind up getting married just to take the kids in. Yes, it's
that was the era.
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
That was the era. That's what you would have
did
done.
that. Now, in this case, they were already madly in love, and he was just not admitting it. But by God, in the 1800s, there were people like, well, I don't know him well, but Mr. Jones is a decent man and makes an honest living.
Yeah.
And he's very polite at church, and we must care for these children. Yes, ma'am, I shall be kind to you, and you will have your own room, but we're taking in those kids. And they got married. People did this. They did this. These two at least are in love. Yeah. And it works out. But yikes.
Well, it works out until the orangutan comes along, but that's later.
No,
that's later.
That's
we'll get to that
seasons later. You know what? Right off the bat, one of the things that struck me about this episode is you see the little white fluffy puppies with the dark brown, short-haired. Looks like sort of a mix of whatever, and the puppies are taken away. I think that was a strong way.
Wait, Dean, had you seen this? Have you seen these episodes before? Was this your first time at the rodeo?
This was the first time.
Okay, this is good. No, this is good. This is good. We need to know these things. Okay, I'm so excited.
I had seen it a lot. I watched highlights this morning.
I've seen elements of this show.
The whole thing. I couldn't take it.
Well, let me tell you something about growing up and looking at this episode.
Okay.
The puppies being put in that sack and then thrown into the river is a permanent core memory of every child that has ever seen this episode before.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my sister and I bawling, absolutely bawling. It is such a core memory of these puppies in the sack and them rescuing them, and then Mary thinking that the last one is dead and then it isn't. And those little girls' reactions,
trauma.
It seems so over the top, but it's not. It's not for a child. And when you're a child watching it, you're experiencing exactly that. And it is, again, it's just I don't know any other show where it's from the child's perspective, but also totally adult at the same time.
Yeah. That would be a devastating thing if you were there to see that. That would be a big, devastating, scarring moment for anybody to watch that.
Right.
Yeah.
And to introduce an episode that's going to be about loss and death of what's every child's worst fear, that your mother might die.
Yeah, exactly.
To introduce us and open with possible murder and horrible death of puppies, and then the puppy. That's hard. I guess it sets the tone that we're going to be introducing death to your kids. We'll start with the puppies.
Yeah.
To get you on the right footing.
Yeah.
But this is going to be about the ultimate death and loss and scare the bejesus out of you.
Yeah.
I think it's such an interesting way for Michael to have stepped in and raised the emotional stakes of this right off and this A-B story flows through the entire two parts. You look at from the adult practicality side, and then from the child's totally emotional perspective about loss and the heartbreak of that. Yeah. It's really a beautifully constructed episode. I mean, the first hour is really all about coming to grips with what's going to be Julia's passing and her coping with this. And the second hour the second hour of the two-parter is about finding home
Family. Yeah.
for the children, and the parallel of the puppies flows right through it. I thought it was
such a vulnerability. Sorry, excuse me, an extra layer of vulnerability. Yeah, for sure.
I thought it was, beautiful the way Michael drew and the way Patricia Neal, who was such a special actress. And, she
Even just
was,
the
there's
quality
the
of her
great
voice.
backstory on this is that she had just gone through a stroke. Isn't that right? That
She had her stroke because I followed her. Brilliant actress, Academy Award. Patricia Neal. She's Patricia Neal. Hi, hello. She had a massive stroke. It was in the 60s. And she had to learn to walk and talk.
And she was young.
Over again. And had children. And it was like, how are we going to care for the children? The whole thing. And she had to walk and talk again. And they weren't sure it was going to work. And her brain, she wasn't sure she was going to have memory. There's a sort of, I guess it's funny now story that apparently she was just recovering well enough that the family were having outings and going to the movies, but it was the 60s and they went to see the Beatles movie Help, which doesn't have a linear plot and is almost like an MTV music video of its day.
She thought she was losing her mind.
And they went and saw it, and then she hid. She didn't want to tell anybody. She was like crying, and they went, "What's wrong?" Well, I gotta go back to the hospital. I couldn't make any sense of the movie didn't make any sense. And they're like, oh, sorry, yikes. No, the movie doesn't make sense.
Right,
We
exactly.
tried to do a movie that had no linear plot and didn't make any sense and scared her half out of her wits.
So I'm sure she felt better.
She was so brave. She had, when we shot this episode, because she had such enormous health concerns and memory concerns, they had a teleprompter. In that church scene, they had the old school. It was like a thing on a roll, practically very basic. But they said, "Do you want this? Do you want? You can have the script. You can have teleprompter. Like we'll do anything." They're bowing, and it was like she might as well have been, Dame Patricia Neal, or
Sure.
It was just like, yes, ma'am. And they said, "Do you need this?" And she's no. And I remember they put in the thing with all the whole monologue on it, just in case. It was like, Michael, what do you need? What do you need? Just in case we're gonna make this work. She didn't look at that thing. She never looked. She didn't glance in its general direction. Even she didn't need nothing. And she was so brave and so incredible. But she had to learn to walk and talk again. So when you hear her very mannered speech, which was a very educated woman, is how she spoke, but also she had to learn to talk again. That's, how many people have done that? That's not like a normal thing. No. It's really hard. I've known people who've done it. It's not fun.
I think, I think she made wonderful choices in how she did this, that she approached all this with such optimism and such hope and resolve, to make it as positive an experience as she could for her children, knowing that this tragedy is obviously a very difficult moment, but really a wonderful example for people of how, again, we speak about this with Little House all the time. It's foundational lessons. We always have choices as to how we're going to deal with the things that come our way in life. And now, Michael got his quivering lip when he learns the news, but she is not going to approach it with sadness. She's approaching
stoic.
it with hope. And it's very powerful, and everyone's terrific in it.
My favorite moment of hers in this episode is not the big speeches or the monologue. It was when Doc Baker gave her the news where she figured out, like, oh, I'm dying. And she ends the scene by just going, well, I'll be darned, and leaves the office. It was done so simply and so matter-of-factly, but loaded with so much. But the way that she just delivered that was, I was like, whoa, that's a masterclass. The way she just did that one line was a total actor's masterclass.
It was so realistic, because what would you do after she got through, how long do I have? She goes, well, and when she tells boss, she goes, well, that's a heck of a thing to just drop on a neighbor.
Right.
Hoy ha ha. And then he tries to cry, and she's like, no, we're not doing that. And one of my favorite lines, there's so many of my favorite lines in the show. I wrote one down. when she says she doesn't want people to take her children out of pity. Pity wears out pretty quickly and is a poor substitute for love.
For love.
I was like, thump. That is one of, there's like a list of great lines in this show, and that's one of them. Pity is a poor substitute for love.
Although I will say, do you want to hear what I have an issue with?
Sure.
I always have an issue with something. It's so, again, it's so interesting revisiting these episodes as an adult versus how your perception of it as a child watching it. So, okay, so she tells her children. And on one hand, it's very positive. She's the way that she's saying it is like, God has chosen me. I must have done something really good because he wants me to come early. And I'm going to see your father up in heaven, and it's going to be awesome. And of course, her children are devastated because they're realizing their mother is going to die. And John Jr. starts crying, and then she
stops him.
yells at him.
Yells
And
at him.
I am like, girl, let him feel his feelings first. Like, please
Yeah.
let them feel their feelings.
You're
like,
crying for you, not for me.
yeah, I listen, I get the sentiment of it. Totally, absolutely. But in that moment, as a mom also watching it, I was like, no, let them be upset just for a minute. And then she was like, okay, off to bed. And I was like, what? Wait a minute.
And I
No one's
100%
sleeping tonight.
knew that was going to be the scene. As I was watching it, oh, Pamela's going to hate this one. And I thought about it. And I went, wow, that's harsh. That's harsh. She's like, well, kid's going to heaven, and that's how it is. Stop crying.
Yep.
But then I went, oh my God, it's the 1800s.
Yes.
It would have been worse than that. It would have been worse than
It
that.
would have
in
been
the 1800s.
actual survival.
She was being nicer to them than a mother who was terminally
Yeah,
ill would have been. She would have marched in there and said, well, you kids better figure out how you get jobs tomorrow because I'm not going to
Right.
be here much longer.
Right.
And she might have slapped him for crying because he's a big boy, the teenage boy. And she would have said, no, you're man of the house.
Right.
She would have decked him for
Right,
crying.
because
in the
it's
1800s.
literal survival for them. You can't
Right.
cry. You
And
cannot
there's not
cry.
enough time.
Yeah.
They have to
Yeah.
find homes. And so the fact that she was nice about it and said, I'm going to heaven, and yes, I'll see you, we'll all be in heaven. That was being a super, super understanding person
know.
in the 1870s.
Yeah.
It probably would have been more heartless and brutal than even we can imagine.
It occurs to me as we're talking about the scene that another version of the scene was done 20 years later in terms of endearment, where Deborah Winger has this scene, the same scene with her children in the movie, and it's very, very touching the way it's done, and she's much more. She allows for the tears to happen. The way it's written, James L. Brooks directed the scene, and it allows. James Brooks allows that emotion to come out, and she tries to hold it in, but the children are allowed their moment of emotion.
Oh God, it's
very
just
touching.
so heartbreaking. You know,
Very touching.
Margot, my daughter Margot, she cannot put herself to sleep at night. We have to lie down with her. We have to snuggle her to sleep. She has not been able to like self-soothe herself to be in her room and put herself down. And most nights in the middle of the night, she's coming into our bed, and it's just that's just Margot. And we know that one day she will grow out of it. So we've been sort of patient with it. But the other night she was just, I just needed to leave her room because I had work to do and it was getting late and she hadn't fallen asleep yet. And I was like, Margot, please. And I was getting sort of angry. Like, you have to learn how to put yourself down now. Like, you're 7 years old now. It's time. Like, you're a big girl. Let's do it. And she started crying and she said, but I can't. I'm scared. And I was like, what are you scared of? And she said, I'm scared something's going to happen to you.
Oh, Lord.
Which was something I had never thought of before. She's not scared to be alone in her room. She's scared something's going to happen to her mommy outside of the room. That's a new element to that. Like, there's a twist, like, holy moly. And it broke my heart. But, thinking about these little kids with this mother saying, hey, I'm not going to be here much longer is, I mean, just the thought of, being worried about mom not being in the same room when you're going to sleep. And then something like this happening, it's just so devastating. It's
a child's worst fear. A child's worst fear is going to lose their mother.
Of
Yes.
course.
Every
Of
Disney
course.
movie opens with that. Bambi
The
on
dead
down,
mother.
his
Yes.
mom dies.
All of their moms are dead.
Disney movie's a huge tragedy. The mother
Yeah.
dies, and it's either
true.
going off to the evil
Yes,
stepmother.
all of those
or
princesses'
something
mothers are dead.
Horrible is going to happen. And fairy tales with the evil step, mom dying, because that is children's number one fear, and that is why all the fairy tales start with mom is dead and there's a stepmother.
Yes,
That's
yes.
why. Because that's the number one anxiety issue for children.
Ooh, okay, let's get to the
Horrifying.
funeral, and then we'll take a break.
Everything worse if that's your anxiety issue, because this is all about having your mom die when you're a child.
Yeah. Okay, and then she passes away, and we're at a very rainy.
I mean, at that, it's sort of it's so Michael, the way he did this, pulling back as the children are on her bed with her, pulling back. The world is crying, with the rain coming down on the on the windows, and we do a hard cut to the funeral service. Very cinematic the way Michael did that. I mean, you don't need any more explanation than that.
I'll also add, to one other thing to the discussion about death and the kids' perspective. So he juxtaposes the scene with, Patricia Neal telling her children and being like, not allowed to cry, like, buck up, you're going to be fine, like, here we go. And then the next is Laura's, when they find out about it and the conversation that they have with Pa about it. And I thought that was really important too. And I thought also from the child's perspective, and I remember being a child and watching it and how important that was to hear the child's perspective, to know about death and dying, and a really important element that also the Ingalls kids also had that discussion as well.
Well, and in the church, when she lays it out, one of my favorite scenes, when they pull back and there's Nels and Harriet and everyone's just
Silence.
Yeah.
The silence is
staring in horror, just frozen, like, well, all right then.
Even as they're walking out, it is silent. How powerful is that? Ugh.
And then what doesn't she say? Where are we going for a picnic now? I mean,
We'll have a picnic.
Julie, it turns it now we're going to a picnic, and everyone steps in and realizes that that life goes on,
right? And is about joy. Should be about joy.
It's really, really moving. It's powerful. It's instructive. It's and in such capable hands. To tell.
And the dealing so directly with death, and that's the thing we forget now. We are very often, and in modern age, and we've had certainly in the last few years got a little view of death. People are more sheltered from direct contact with death nowadays.
Totally.
People
Absolutely.
shield their children. In fact, there was a phase, and I'm so glad this phase is over, of let's not talk about death with the children at all, and let's never take them to a funeral.
I know.
And let's not even let them.
Really? Was that a
There was
thing?
a phase where, oh no, the children shouldn't go to the funeral. It'll be too much. And it was really old fashioned. It was like, I don't know, the 50s. Thank God, like in the 60s, people went, are you crazy? You can't do that.
Just like you never talked about cancer. It was the C word, and you never talked about it. You certainly didn't talk about it in front of the children.
Oh, and people wouldn't tell children their parents were dying. They would absolutely drag that out, and to not tell kids and not confront it directly. And then that changed, thank heavens, and people started saying, no, children have to grieve, they have to go to the funeral. But in the 1800s, because sadly, as we know from Little House on the Prairie, people died all the time. There were terrible diseases and accidents. And
Death and childbirth
and
was a
children died all the time.
And children
constantly.
And there was a much more direct contact. So for her, as terrible as it is, she's like, well, kind of like, well, your father died. You know how when people die? Yeah. Well, that's happening again. And as awful as it is. And the church, direct contact, just coming, hey, guys, I'm dying. Shocking. But death was a palpable thing that was there next to you all the time. There was no sheltering anybody from death out on the prairie in the 1800s.
Well, right. Like we've talked about before.
To us now.
Right. I mean, how we've talked before, literally, if you didn't chop enough wood, you were dead in the winter. You would die. Like it must have been that death had to have been a palpable something always there. not just the wood, but disease and, you know, like you
Everything.
say, there weren't any
Yeah.
antibiotics in the 1800s. So, you know,
Right.
Doc
You know,
Baker could only do so much. He
There's
did a lot.
something I you know, in the I haven't experienced a lot of death firsthand in my life, but there certainly have been a few experiences. And I came away from the experience feeling like this passing that I've just witnessed is enormously life affirming.
Yes.
Because you see when you're watching this happen, it's when people pass, it's not like in the movies where you just, I mean, it can be, I'm sure, but people cling to life. We do not let it go easily. And it's jarring, but I found it to be very affirming that this life force, when we let it go or when it leaves us, it's entirely, you know, you're in a completely different space with somebody. They are gone. But that force of life when you're witnessing it is very, very powerful. That is a very personal thing to witness that. And it changed my whole feeling about passing. I mean, yes, it's hard. You don't want to see somebody go. Obviously that's really hard, but our lives are really beautiful, and there's a force in them, and that's something to be celebrated. And when we remember somebody, we want to remember the force of the life. We want to remember the intention to live.
Right, not
That's
the death
what
part
we
of
want.
it.
That's what we want to remember.
Yeah.
And I think this episode really, within the wonderful dialogue and in the attitude that Patricia Neal chose to play this, it's all about affirming life and the importance of life and family and connectedness, which are themes that were just massively important to Michael Landon as a creative person. And I mean, what a, you know, just it's a beautiful story. And what does Dab say at the very end? Loud and clear?
Yes.
Something like, yeah.
Right. After he says the "remember me" quote. Right.
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. And
God, he's so
and
good.
then we're immediately, and I think I watched it on Peacock last night, and they do a cut to join the two episodes together. And I feel like that, and having not seen it on the air, I don't know how it actually ended, but it feels like it ended with Loud and Clear, continued next week, and it picks up right there at the funeral again with the approach of the family. I'd like to talk to you about the children. And now we're off and running
Right.
in the second story.
Should we
Is
take a
where does
break,
family
and
go?
then when we get back, we'll talk about part 2?
Yes,
Okay,
very
we're
good.
taking a
need
break.
to
Thank you,
Everybody,
Pamela.
let's cleanse the palate. Let's have a drink of water, take some deep breaths, and we'll be right back.
When you visit Simi Valley, California, you're stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents. Explore beautiful wildflowers, hike through iconic Hollywood locations, and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout the summer, take the Little House 50th Anniversary Tour at Big Sky Movie Ranch. Less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios, Simi Valley has small-town charm with big-time history. Go to visitsimiValley.com for more information. We are so grateful to visitsimiValley.com for their commitment to presenting the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast.
Hi, we're back. Okay, so now we are in part 2, and this is all centered around the children and finding them a home to live, right?
Yeah.
And not just a home to live, but people to love them
Love
and
them.
take care of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is tough. And Charles has been tasked
Yes.
with being responsible to be the one to find a
Yes.
home for these children. which is cutting him up because he would like to take the children. And
Of
what does he
course.
say? He says, I can't even,
He
I can
said,
barely
it's the one time in my
even-"
life I can barely put shoes on my own children. It's the one time in my life I'm sorry I'm not rich.
And what a when he said that,
Yeah.
oof,
Yeah, yeah.
whoa,
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
never hear him say something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Never.
Yeah, yeah. And then we are immediately introduced, of course, to the B side of the story with Mr. Edwards. And
Yes.
he is so detached from it all because of the loss that he experienced early when he lost his wife and his child. And so he's been shut down on this, and yet he sees, we see his sadness and his detachment. He just doesn't want to touch it, but
He
eventually
doesn't want to admit he's in love with Grace.
No.
Yeah.
Also, what a gift Michael Landon gave him as an actor, and what a gift Michael Landon did as a writer to write such a multifaceted character, which is Isaiah Edwards.
Yeah.
And also that they didn't abandon that storyline. I mean, how many times on any show, let alone Little House on the Prairie, we hear something about their backstory and then it's never talked about again. Even just the traumas that, Laura was kidnapped and called my Ellen, and never didn't seem to
And we never
bother
hear
her
about it
ever
again.
again. Like,
Right,
there's no
right.
trauma. Like, everyone's fine.
Right,
But
right.
Mr. Edwards is, I think, really the one of the character storylines that they actually follow through on in the series, right?
Interesting.
Which is, and it all, and it just makes that character so rich, and the fact that Victor French, and he talked about this, right? That what a gift this part was, because it gave him every color of spectrum of the rainbow that he could play, from comedic to highly dramatic, and he nails every single one of them. And you get the psyche, you get the psychology of it, which makes it even more painful,
No, it definitely does. Victor's range was well, he could flip on that sort of that goofy guy that taught Laura to spit, and that that was the comedic side of Victor,
Right.
but where he really lived, I think where Victor really lived more realistically in his life was in that sadness. I mean, Victor was a very sad man. You could see it in his eyes all the time. He had this humor, but there was great sadness about Victor.
Well,
when you
most great comedians are
Yes.
very tortured souls,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tragedy plus time equals
Comedy. Yeah. Sadly. Yeah.
And then you've got then his story with Grace, then you have, she is optimistic, finding a path, stepping in with the children. He's watching this happen and being drawn into it because he cares for her, and it's touching a part of him that he didn't think he would ever really touch again.
Right.
And which is why, of course,
kisses
he's
him
the
in
alone.
front of people, and he has a fit. But yes, he is in love with her, and they are absolutely having this sort of dating thing. But he's like, no, this is not a real. I'm not having a serious relationship. This is not happening. This is not happening. And when Pa's saying, you should marry that woman.
Yes.
Probably
Right.
Your friends and start giving you advice. Yeah. And he's like, no. But he obviously that he's trying to be shut down because he's madly in love with her, but doesn't want to go there again because.
It's too painful.
But she's
if
widowed.
anything.
She lost her husband.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I will say the scene where, first of all, the puppy usage in this episode is also, I mean, what an amazing device. Michael Landon is a genius, just a genius. You see Alicia holding that little puppy and you just want to crumble. It's just so sweet and so vulnerable. And that scene where she's in bed with the puppy and he's like, don't you want to make a bed for the puppy? But she needs that puppy. And then she, at the end, and he's like, the puppy can sleep with you one more night. And she's so grateful and she loves Mr. Edwards so much. And she reaches out and she just
the beard. I love that moment with the beard.
just
Yeah.
fiddles his beard. And I mean, my God, what first of all, for Michael Landon to even know that such a simple gesture, something like that, that a child would do to a grown man.
Yeah.
A child would only do that if she felt deep love and affection and safety
safe.
and security around this adult.
Yeah.
Now, about these puppies, I have to say, sorry.
Did you get to play with the puppy?
Nellie.
Nellie.
Okay,
Don't
we
give
know
Nellie
I'm
puppy.
But I am apparently, according to this plot line, so utterly inhuman and devoid of feeling that I am not considered safe to leave a puppy.
Well,
with.
Bunny is
They
in
won't
season
even
3,
give
so
me
it's just a
a dog.
precursor. No. Don't. I would never want Nellie to have
You
one of
wouldn't
those
give
puppies.
me a damn dog, would you? They
Nope.
won't give me that dog. What are you gonna? Don't tell Nellie. Don't even tell Nellie about the puppy. But the Olsons could tell. Well, she'd feed it, but she wouldn't love it. I am beyond even the love of a puppy. And I offer,
you're a
I
psychopath.
offer her 50 cents. That's a lot of money back then.
Don't
I
take it
offer
personally.
50
It's just
cents
it's in the writing.
for the puppy, and she won't even sell me a puppy. And then when things get really heated and Pa's breaking up the children because that's 1800s, they're lucky it wasn't all 3 of them in separate homes.
That's
It was
right.
horrible.
Yeah,
that's
that's
what people
right.
did. The orphans. Well, sorry, we need the boys on the farm. They're threatening to break up the children, and she's like, fine. Worst thing she can come up. She's trying to come up with the
Yes.
most distressing, horrible threat. I'm going to give the puppy to Nellie. Then
Right.
that's her threat.
Right. Because
her threat
yes.
of death is
Right.
to say,
Yeah.
Because
I'll
if
give a
you don't,
puppy
that's
to
right.
Nellie.
Right,
That's the
because if
worst.
you don't care about splitting these children up, then it doesn't matter if this puppy has a home that actually is going to be like someone
Where
that actually
he will be
takes care of
loved.
it and loved.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give the puppy to Nellie. 'Cause that's
Yeah,
like
Nellie's
most
the worst.
disgusting thing I can say. Wow.
Ah!
I at the time I was like, seriously, I can't dog. I can't. No, I know. I didn't get to play with the puppies because apparently I'm a monster and I'm not allowed around animals.
It's a powerful construction.
Well, the track record is not strong for you, Nellie Olson.
Yeah. No question. No question. I mean, it all works.
It totally makes sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the worst. That
Yeah.
like, but if you do this, I'll give the puppy to Nellie.
So, but we do have Harriet Olsen's cousin, Minerva
Yes. Who's a lovely
Farnsworth.
person.
Lovely person. She must
Yeah.
have been on the father's side or whatever side it is. I don't know.
Minerva.
Minerva.
Farnsworth. Yes.
Who only wants Alicia, and she's loaded, and she's like, I'll give this kid everything, and then when I die, she's got it all.
Yeah.
And then there's a farmer couple that only wants the boys, to only have them as farmhands.
Well, the wife wants Alicia too, but he's made up his mind that he only wants the two, and that's a very much a moment of a time too, where he really shuts his wife down and says,
Oh
no.
yeah, and I'm sure also. I mean, farmers must have been so desperate for
Well, boys were
farmhand help
big
for
deal.
boys that
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure this
yeah.
was very actually common at the time.
Oh,
You said
totally.
to not starve to death, you've got to get the crops in. You're not going to do this by yourself. And here you might have, if you haven't had kids, and he's probably laid a big trip on his wife about the fact that they don't have a bunch of sons to do this.
Yeah,
Except he's
yeah.
looking at her.
Yeah.
You know, it's the 1800s, so he's probably said, well, if you had kids.
You failed.
You failed.
Oh,
you didn't produce
God.
me any sons to go work those fields. So to have 2 strapping young boys who really could, and as I said, who were well-behaved, good boys, who would work your fields, bang, zoom, that's a hell of an offer. And yeah, so he thinks that's a pretty good deal. And as those couples go, they're almost nice because there were people who wanted farmhands, orphans, who were awful and just give me them orphans to be farmhands. Who were
Right,
Sure.
bad people. So they were probably pretty good on the scale of terrible people adopting your children.
It was
But
a matter of
and the poor
survival.
mother is sympathetic. She would have taken the girl, but he's not a nice person. He's told her, no, you can't even have
It's
the
just
girl.
so
No,
why?
give you that.
Here's my question though: is Mrs. Farnsworth is Minerva? I call her Minerva. We're on a first name basis, she and I.
Yes.
Minerva is loaded. Why can't she take all 3 children? Why? She has the means.
Completely could.
Because
She'd send those
that's-
boys to a
because
good school too.
that's
She could
not our
afford to send
story.
all 3 of them.
That's because that's the answer. Because
She's
Michael
know,
Landon didn't write it that way.
He
damn
didn't
it.
write it that way.
And
Yeah.
she's an elderly, foofy, widow lady, and they would be like, "Well, I have a pretty little girl, and I'll dress her like a doll."
Right.
And they would be, "Whatever will I do with it?" She doesn't have any
Right.
crops to bring in. She would
Yeah.
have these two teenage boys in her mansion, knocking things over and breaking stuff.
Right.
But you can
right.
just tell from her the way that actress, and I mean, we know her.
She was lovely.
She was
She
lovely.
nailed it.
She would have been great given the way she played this person, the energy that she was presenting. She would have been a wonderful mother to all three of those children.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that she would have. That was not the story,
Right.
but it sort of also, in some ways, it sort of helps Mrs. Olsen too that she could have such a lovely relative that was, you know, that was really a nice thing. I thought I thought this woman was just spectacular and with all the right intention everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there was no fail on her part.
Yeah,
Her
no.
heart was totally in the right
Yes.
place.
And a
Yes.
woman of that strata in that time period, like, oh, I had two teenage boys now. What am I going to say to them? What am I going to do? with it? I can handle a little.
But
girl
she would
with
have handled it.
Maybe
Now,
it was
on the other
also.
hand, I might want the boys because if I'm getting older and I need stuff done around the house and heavy things moved and someone to protect me, I'd say bring the boys. We'll need them. We'll need them.
I had a great aunt who had no use for girls at all. It was all about what young strapping boys could do to help her get done what she needed to get done. I mean, this was, I'm talking about when I am, a young boy into my early teens. This was what I saw from my great aunt who struggled with so many different things. But she really, she got a twinkle in her eye with a young boy around who could pick something up and carry it for her. I mean, that was the world that she lived in. And that's the world that a lot of people lived in at that time.
Yeah.
My
I also.
father was in the orphanage. He was put up for adoption as a baby, and he was in the orphanage for, unfortunately, a couple of years.
Who, your
and-
dad?
Yeah, and it was the height of the Depression. We're talking malnutrition. He had
Ay,
rickets,
ay,
he had
ay.
rickets and malnutrition to the point of vitamin D deficiency rickets. He was that sick by the time he was
Yeah.
adopted.
Oh,
And
boy.
he said it wasn't pretty. You needed to get adopted. You knew things were going badly. So when you were presented to a family or people were kids, you were like, la, 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 me.
Right.
Pam.
You were tap dancing as fast as you could.
Yeah, to pick me. And he said some people clearly wanted boys, clearly wanted girls. Some people clearly were not taken again. And when he saw this farm family, the Arngrimsons, with a bunch of kids, he's like, I need to make these people adopt me now because he knew that this would be a good household. And so my father was not overly fond of the episodes involving orphans on the show.
And there are a lot of orphans on this
Oh,
show.
yeah.
I'll be
Lots of
watching this
orphans.
one. Yeah,
It's a orphans and adoption
real.
is a huge,
Theme on Little House.
huge.
Yeah. Ongoing theme.
Alison, I didn't know that about your dad. That's so interesting.
His real name was Wilfred James Bannon.
Oh,
So
right,
that was
Bannon.
his real name.
Bannon. I'm Irish.
And you met them in
Bannon.
Ireland.
I met the Bannons
Oh,
in Ireland.
okay.
But he got adopted and got named Torhudler Marvin Arngrimson. He went from Wilfred to Torhudler. He could not catch a break. Then he was a two-time loser on the name front. But he got adopted by this, and it was a farm family. And a lot of they out in the fields, get out there, milk that cow, pick them crops. That happened. But he got scored because they didn't just want a farmhand. They were good people. They were like the Ingalls. They got adopted by the Ingalls. They were fabulous. So, but it was this close. It was this close, and children were separated from their brothers and sisters, and people got sent to horrible homes.
I mean, that still happens, does it not, with adoption or foster care? With
foster,
oftentimes
I would think that could
the
be very
siblings
challenging.
get split up.
They get separated all the time.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think we need to race to the finish here
finish
and
line.
and get to that sort of that critical moment when
The children,
when Minerva, when Minerva says I will take her, I want when it's very clear to Charles that this is not going to work out and he's heartbroken about it and he recognizes that he's going to have to allow this to happen and Laura's devastated by it and Ma tries to make clear that these are very difficult decisions. It's not what anyone would want to do,
right?
But it has to happen.
Survival.
And survival. And in the end, Mr. Edwards isn't having it. And that's that moment. It's time to go. And she turns, Alicia, who's just adorable, turns into her brother's hip and hugs him and doesn't want to let go.
I mean, I can't even, when the brothers
Yeah.
are saying goodbye to Alicia, I cannot
Yeah.
even. It is so devastating to see that. And all of them standing around watching this, witnessing this, and no one can do a thing about it until Mr. Edwards does.
Until Mr. Edwards stand up, I can,
Right.
it's not right. And I'm going to do, and then everything, this is like that. These are those Little House moments that people love where, I mean, would this really happen? Obviously it could happen, but this was Michael's storytelling, and he could wrap this up in a neat little bow at the end and have everyone feel wonderful at the end of it. And
there's true love.
it's his gift.
Romance. I mean,
Yes.
you see Mr. Edwards tell Charles one, but it's right. It's not right. It's not right, and gets it. But then it's like, will you marry me? And he does. He not only admits he's saving the children, he admits that he's in love with his girlfriend finally. And
I can say it now. I can admit it.
Right, and Pa called him on it, saying, you know, because
you like
Edwards
being
told
alone.
him his sob story that it's, it's hard being alone, and I'll never
It's
be
your
the same for
choice.
my loss. And Pa said, well, it's your choice to be alone. And so that coming around at the end too is so satisfying, and again done in a way that we believe it, that it doesn't seem just like a ploy to have a happy ending.
A feature of Michael's writing is that everything is open. The audience has all in Michael's stories. I'm sure that there have to be some anomalies with this. But as I've watched more and more of Michael's storytelling, the audience knows everything.
Yes.
Always. And it's what the characters' journeys are. But there's no secrets. There's no, the audience is not going to be shocked by, they may be thrilled by something that happens, but they knew all the circumstances.
Right.
And this is where the instructive part of Little House comes from, because you get to see all the pieces in motion
And
all
the
the time.
actors, sometimes the characters are surprised. You're going,
Right.
what's he going to do?
Sure.
But he
Characters don't
which
always know.
is Alfred Hitchcock time. But the old bit about put the bomb under the table, the audience sees the bomb. The two people at the table do not see the bomb.
Have no idea. Right.
That is the Hitchcock principle. And
Right.
literally that's what we're doing on Little House.
Yeah, the audience always knows everything. And so we are feeling for the audience. As an audience member, you are feeling for everybody, and you're hoping and wanting, and it's a lovely way to finish. And then of course you finish with Patricia Neal's narration of the "Remember Me" line again, and we have a happy, everyone's going to be good, and it's a lovely way to end.
It's still like a really hard episode.
Do you feel better?
It
Pamela?
is. I
You
know
said-
it's.
yeah.
You try like 8 times during
I know
this.
it's
brutal.
a tough. It's
Brutal.
tough. It is. It's hard. It's again the experience of being a kid watching this episode. It's
Yeah.
still hard as a kid. But it's a totally different experience than watching it as an adult, and certainly as a parent. It's just like a different. You just see so many different things,
Sure.
and
Sure.
both are valid and both are vital, which is why it's so cool. It really struck me how cool it was that Michael Landon made sure that he included some of the children's narrative
Yes.
in this too, and their perspective, and not
This-
just from the adults.
We've talked about this so many times. One of Michael's deepest felt beliefs on this is that families should watch this together, young people, older people, because in an episode like this, there is something for everybody,
And the
there is a lot
conversation.
to talk about.
The conversation
Yeah.
that you would have after
Yes.
this episode
Yes,
is over
a
with your
lot.
children. I mean, holy moly.
Yeah.
And
No, I
how
mean,
wonderful that conversation would be happening, and how how many. I remember on Sesame Street when Mr. Hooper died, they did the episode of how do we have to address it, right? The writers and the creators of Sesame Street were like, we have to address this. He's dead in real life. Like, Mr. Hooper is no longer going to be on this show, and so they carefully crafted this touching, honest episode of explaining that he's not coming back, and sort of And that was like breakout TV. That was like considered really revelatory television.
Yeah.
And it had never been done before. And I think this episode is maybe the only other television I've seen involving children that children would watch where the topic is so carefully and thoughtfully approached in a way that would create discussion, healthy discussion afterwards.
Right.
And so remember, they used Big Bird. They centered it around everyone having to explain it to Big Bird.
Oh,
because Big
Google,
Bird's
I
the
mean,
youngest.
YouTube it. It's
Big Bird is the baby. Big Bird's like 3 or 4. Really, the way he talks, Big Bird is like a 4-year-old, and they didn't like spend time explaining it to Oscar, the older. Everyone had to sit Big Bird down, and Big Bird was like, "Do you mean he's not coming back? Where did he go?" And explaining it to the youngest Muppet, and it was just, that's why it worked, because they used the children's perspective. It was
that's right.
Killing me.
Yeah,
killing me.
it's Well, great. I'm sufficiently depressed, and no,
you should feel hopeful at the end.
It is. It's a great ending. It's a very satisfying ending without it again being that cloying preciousness.
Yes.
Correct. It's very grounded. You believe it. It's believable.
Yes.
And it's not in your face sweetness. It just is what it is.
Right.
And then next we get to see John not killing a deer or something like that. Whatever, with Edward's like being disappointed. But that's, their journey as father and son that comes after this, which I'm sure we will be recapping some of those episodes.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Listen, I think we need to be racing for the exit here.
We do. You guys, this was lovely. Please join us again. We hope you enjoyed this one. You can follow us on littlehouse50podcast.com, littlehouse50podcast on our socials. All of our going to be in our show notes. If you need to know the upcoming Little House events, that's all in our show notes. Join us on Patreon. Alison's going to talk to us a bit more about Patricia Neal and some insider
that's fun.
story.
Can't wait to hear that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think it's that time. Bob, get the wig. Let's fly. Bye, everyone. See you next time. That's flying this week. Slower than usual.
Killing it.
Puppies. Just think of the puppies.